Hi, I'm Susie, and welcome to Let's Fly. In this episode, my guest, Tierra Wilson, also known as T, is sharing her story publicly for the first time. T is a widow, a mom, and a successful entrepreneur. She opens up about the sudden diagnosis of stage 4 colon cancer that took the life of her husband, Anderson, at just 42 years old. They had been married for 16 years, building their life and businesses together when everything changed. In this episode, T shares what caregiving really looks like, the medical decisions, stepping in as the advocate, and protecting someone's peace while they fight a terminal illness. But this conversation is also about resilience and honoring her husband, a man she describes as everyone's person. Let's begin. Hi, I'm Susie Schumacher, and welcome to the Let's Fly podcast, where I dive into the real stories behind life's hardest experiences. The stories of people who showed up as themselves, and sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't, but they made the choice to keep going. Real stories, honest conversations, and how they found the courage to find hope. Let's fly! Hi, T. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited about today. Yeah, so this is my first time talking about this publicly, like to someone besides family or friends. So it's
Thank
time now. So I'm really hoping that it helps someone because I know that a lot of us go through things like this. And it was such a shock when it happened to me. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Tierra, and I lost my husband 4 years ago suddenly. So he passed away from stage 4 colon cancer. And it came completely out of nowhere where he was super young. We were living our lives. I'm an entrepreneur. He's also an entrepreneur. We worked from home together. We have 3 kids and 2 of his biological kids, and then me and him had a child as well. And we were married for 16 years. So 16 years, yeah. Both of us born and raised in Louisiana, and we got married with a U-Haul outside in jeans, and we picked Phoenix off of a map. Like we literally closed our eyes and picked Phoenix, traveled across the country and started our lives together. And we built everything from scratch. So we literally lived every moment of our lives together. So he worked from home, I worked from home. Like we were in business together. We raised our kids together. He was an amazing dad. And yeah, suddenly, he ended up having a pain on his right side. And he was so young. He was only 43 years old. And I was still in my 30s at that time, late 30s. And he started to have a pain on his side. And we never thought it would be cancer, of course. We came up with every other, IBS or, maybe, something else
you.
wrong. And then when he went to go get it checked, right, they did a scan, they checked everything out, and they didn't see anything. They was like, oh, we see a little spot on your liver, but that's pretty normal. Just go to your primary care doctor, and that should be fine. So that was probably a few months before his official diagnosis. And then the pain just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And then he started losing weight, and he was a big guy. So he was always a little bit sturdy. And so when he started losing weight, that's when I really started to get concerned. And he was talking about the pain, which, for guys, like if it's really like he was talking about it all day. So I was kind of looking at him and I'm like, something's not quite right. Like, as women, the intuition starts to kick in. And I'm just
Right.
kind of looking at him like carefully, like, something's not quite right. I'm a little bit concerned. And then this is the part that gets a little interesting. So we went to sleep. He was in pain and we went to sleep that night and I had a dream. This is what got the diagnosis. I ended up having a dream. So I went to sleep that night and I had a dream that he was in this truck delivering packages. And we took this weird left turn and we ended up in the Sahara Desert in Africa. The white truck stopped and we got out and we were looking at the beautiful view. And then this huge white rhino, very strange, just started coming running towards us and he pushed me behind a bush. And the rhino got on top of him and it took its hoof and it poked him in the liver and in the hip. And I remember being behind the bush and I didn't know what to do. And I woke up suddenly. I was freaked out. And I woke him up right then, literally. And I was like, wake up. We're going to the emergency room, immediately. So he got up.
Your gut.
Yeah, it just hit. And I just knew when I woke up. I was and I do have vivid dreams and lucid dreams a lot.
Okay.
And so that's not out of the normal, but you can tell when it's not a normal dream. It's my subconscious saying, hey, listen to something's
Yeah.
happening. So we ended up, rushing to the ER at the major hospital at the major big city next to us. So we left the small town and drove over to Phoenix, the downtown area. And he ended up going into the ER. And they were like, maybe it's valley fever. Maybe it's this. You're so young. Your blood work is perfect. By the way, his blood work was perfect this whole time, all the way until he died. Like,
Wow.
weirdest thing. And they ended up taking him into to get his scan, and they scanned his body, and the guy came back and he was like, "We're going to send you directly to the cancer floor. It is everywhere. You have stage 4 cancer." Like, it was immediate. So he got admitted right there that night. That's when it started. Within 10 months, I was burying my husband. He was gone.
Well, how do you I mean, you take them to the hospital, their blood work is great, and then you get that.
He got admitted. They still didn't wanna really say what it was. They were like, "That's probably what it is." They were still kinda tiptoeing around it just a little bit, but they took him to the cancer ward to get all the official stuff, and I remember thinking, what's very strange? Like, I remember going down into the parking lot of the ER and getting in my car, and I ended up, sitting there, and I was just in a full panic. I think I called my mom, and I was freaking out, and the biggest issue was, like, we can't afford this because our insurance was so young. Our insurance, like, basically covered, you know, the basics for someone because you don't really get, like, those checks until you're, like, 43, 44, 45. So our
Right.
insurance was the basics insurance. So I was thinking to myself, "Oh my god, stage 4, like, I'm gonna lose my husband, and then, oh my god, how are we gonna pay for this, type of treatment?" So it was like a
Right.
panic in both areas at once, which is very interesting. It's funny what grief does. Like, we look for things to fix immediately versus, sitting there. Like,
Go to take care of business.
I refuse to accept, like, the going to the emotional part of it. I literally went into, like, troubleshooting mode almost immediately, and I just remember panicking about the insurance, which is so interesting. But then I also remember, like, just breaking down, crying to my mom, and it's like, "I can't, lose my husband. Like, what am I gonna do?" Like, I was in a panic. It was a tough one. Ended up, going home that night. He was admitted to the hospital. This was very close to COVID, so we couldn't stay, overnight in the hospitals at that time. None of that was allowed still. So this was very, very close to COVID. And I remember just going home that night and sleeping by myself in the bed. Had no idea what I was about to get into, like, at all. You hear the stories about it, but you don't understand what it's like to caregive for someone that is at a terminal illness with a diagnosis like that. And then they're young. It's a it's a difference when they're young. I don't think people realize that. And I didn't know that myself,
Right.
because you think about, the people in your life that have, gotten those diagnoses. They live 4 or 5 years, they're older and you think that you have, like, at least a couple of years. But when you're young and healthy, and you get
Right.
cancer, what people don't know is that your cells duplicate faster. So that's why when young people end up getting cancer, they tend to have a shorter diagnosis because their cells are constantly, like, duplicating faster versus slower when you get older. So you end up suffering a little bit more and end up having a shorter time period from diagnosis to death.
Well, and when there's no I mean, it's never a good news, but sometimes if you have a little heads up and then you have, like what you were talking about, not only the shock, but the dreams are different now. The
Hmm.
plans are different now. And then for the person that just heard that is their body and they're dealing with that. How did you what was their I mean, how did you handle that? Because you have to be do you put your game face on? Like, how do you walk through that? That's
Honestly,
true love.
yes, you put your game face on. I feel like all of that comes towards when the diagnosis first hits, you have hope that you can cure it.
Okay,
So when it first hits, you're in, like, we could beat this. Like, we got this. Like, you're like, you're into it. You're not accepting that this is gonna change. You're
okay.
accepting that they're gonna survive it, that they're going to live through it, that you'll be able to heal it. I remember having a notebook this thick. And I remember, like, having, like, home cooked foods and keto diets and research and plant-based and just switching things around. And I remember just being in, like, white blood cell count numbers, and just the goal at that point was just constantly, like, it won't change. Like, we will beat this. Like, we will figure this out. And then the part that you're talking about, when we get to that point where the treatment stopped working and you're going into those offices and because you're every single week, you're going to get the updates. You have to go get your blood work done, and then you take your blood work to your doctor, and every week he's letting you know, is it doing good or is it doing bad? And when we first started his first treatment, his it was very successful. Like a lot of it like cleared up and he had a pretty good diagnosis at the very beginning. He was like, yeah, we're seeing this a major improvement. But once his body got used to the treatment, it fell back down again. And so as you keep going to those appointments, the outlook gets worse and worse. And then you realize like that's when you start realizing like my life's about to change towards the end because you start going in and they're like, yeah, the numbers are worse. It's spread here. It's spread to his hip. It's spread to your liver. It's spread here. And once it started spreading even more than where it was, that's when it like really hits you and you realize to yourself, okay, my life's about to change and this is not looking good.
And see, I thought when they said stage 4, I thought that was so you also went through a phase of hope and I'm gonna fix this, which is a beautiful way of loving him. And what I'm curious what his response was to it all.
I think at first he was, kind of with me on it, like, let's figure it out. Like, he had hope and smiles on his face and was trying to be positive. But I think deep down, Anderson knew. His personality shifted to almost a calmness towards the end. I'm not sure if people that have been caregiving, like it's like almost like a calmness happens towards the end. And you could tell like he was done with the treatments. He was because the treatments themselves destroy you and they destroy your body.
When you said the quietness, do you think that's acceptance?
I do think it's an acceptance level and also just a decision from him he made the final decision to stop treatments. And to go ahead and he said out of his mouth, like, "I don't wanna be a burden anymore, and also I wanna enjoy, the time that I have left," because the treatments, they destroy you. The radiation, chemo, especially at stage 4, he was losing weight, he could barely walk anymore, like, the deterioration of such a strong man, it gets to the point where he was like, "Tiara, this is enough, like, we need to, enjoy the time that we have left, and I can't do these treatments anymore." The doctor once they stopped working, he was pretty much done, and there were no other options for him. Yeah.
Were you wanting to continue a treatment?
Yeah, I think I did, to be honest. We had one more option when we left. Now looking back, we probably should have stopped a lot sooner. If I could go back, if I could, I would probably stop a lot sooner than I did. Probably it was 10 months total. I probably would have stopped around month 6, I think, and let him enjoy the rest of his time that he had. But there was one more option. There was a pill you can take at home just to kind of slow it down but all the side effects would have still been there. And the doctor was basically like, "The treatments aren't working. This is all that's left, and you can go home and take this, or you can decide not to." It was pretty clear then that the prognosis was like we had reached the end of the journey. And Anderson immediately was like, "No, I'm good. Thank you so much for all your help." And we went home from there.
When you share that if you had gone back, you would not have prolonged it, but I mean, I know people are in that kind of situation. And so I mean, I'm just imagining you 2 having that conversation, and then what was the next step, next plan? That let's live now for now. Is that something that was able to happen?
No, that was the plan, and I don't think they tell you, like, how fast after you decide not to, how fast it, like, ends. So, he decided not to, and we went home, and within 48 hours, maybe, I was noticing that his eyes were starting to turn really yellow, the cancer in his liver was starting to take over, and I was surprised. I thought we'd come home. Hospice came and got set up another year maybe, few
Right.
months. But, I called his doctor, I was really concerned, and he was like, "Yeah, I" that last meeting that we had when he sent us out and told us we could get the pill or not get the pill, he was like, "Yeah, Tiara, I don't see him going past, a few weeks." And that was shocking to me. So when the hospice nurse got there to check on him, she looked at me and she was like, I don't think he'll make it a week. Like, I think it'll be a few days. So, from him denying treatment to coming home and doing hospice, less than 3 days, and he was gone.
But you were there with him.
Yeah, I was there with him, but he was basically comatose. I mean, he was able to blink and look, but by the time he maybe had 1 day after stopping treatment where he could talk and interact with the family, and then after that, it was we didn't talk to him again from that day.
But I think the power that you gave him and the support and the
Yeah.
love made that help him
Mhm.
more than chemo. I mean, that's I don't know, I have this picture of you guys in the bed and just that feeling of letting go.
Yeah, I think that's the toughest part, and I shared that with you, I think, before about the nighttime process throughout this entire 10 months. Like, you're sleeping next to cancer, I call it, because they're in the bed with you and you can, feel them deteriorating. Like what started off as like normal cuddles when you're married. Now you have to be careful about areas that you touch. You can feel like the weight in the bed change. And then even all the way down to hospice, slept in the bed with me. He didn't move into his own bed until like the very last 2 days. So we still had that time together and I still spent time with him. We still talked the whole time. He could still blink and talk to me back and all those sorts of things in those ways. But you could tell he was at peace. You could tell he was at peace and that he was happy that it was ending, but and happy that he wasn't going to be a burden anymore, what he called it. But that's not
Right.
what we were saying. Yeah.
I remember you sharing one time too the importance of talking to the person
Yes.
versus not that acting like they aren't there. Can you
Yeah.
speak to that? Because I think that was a really good insight.
I don't know if it's because, being a certified coach myself and having done the work, and going through my life coaching certification, but I was strict that whole 10 months about what was said in front of him and while he was struggling. From the very beginning to once you get a stage 4 diagnosis, one of the hardest parts of this process was the bedside manner. Once you get a stage 4 diagnosis, it's already tough, right? They
Right.
know they're dying. They know that they have cancer. They know that, this is going to be a hard journey. And the doctors tend to like the words that come out of their mouth, it's counterintuitive to healing almost, right? Because you're getting that negative news constantly and the stress of that negative news constantly. So I was really protective of that. If he already knew something once, as his patient's rights, right? He should know. Once that was done, any repetitive and updates would come to me. And we both talked about that. He
Right.
wanted to be able to enjoy his life to a certain extent. So I would step out with the doctors for anything that he didn't need to know. And he requested that. Like, if I don't need to know it, if it's not primary, then just let my wife know and she'll let me know when it's important because it was so stressful when you have stage 4 at that age and they're constantly like talking to you that way. Then down to when you're in hospice, right? Although, he's aware, his eyes are open, he's blinking, he understands, talking about the patient in the room with them just felt uncomfortable. So, I think he might have a few days left. Like you're standing by the bed of someone
Wow.
and so I'm looking at her and I'm like, let step outside and talk. And I let her know, like, I don't, we don't have those conversations while he's laying in the room because they can hear everything. Right.
Right.
And they're fully aware. And so I was really strict about that and tried my best to keep his peace. Even when the official diagnosis came in, I remember that day, he walked out of the doctor's office and was like, I just can't do it. So I actually am the one that got his diagnosis, and then I told him that it was stage 4 cancer, and then he went and talked to the doctor because he had so much anxiety about it because he was so young,
Yeah.
like, he was so young, and that's another thing having to deal with someone so young dying, like, it's a different type of existential, situation, and then during COVID, when you could barely get a therapist, that was already a medical situation we were in, and so he didn't get the mental support that he needed to because everything was backed up during COVID. There was no
Right.
way to get in, so he didn't get that mental support that he needed as well. So we were really strict about certain things.
Well, he got a hell of a mental support from you. I mean, what I love is how you were his champion and his protector. Because when you're in it, you're already in shock, and it doesn't just go away after a couple of weeks. Because it's like, "Wait, this is happening," and then everything we thought is upside down. But I love that you were like enough, like, all you guys kinda we were still that team, and that's what I think that's, like, the greatest gift that you gave him, is that, "I got this. I'll carry this. You just be you." In the midst of all that, you are still protecting him. So I'm glad that you're sharing that because I don't think people understand the amount that's on the family or the caregiver. Even when you have hospice, they don't just come in and take care of everything. They're
No.
almost like just a time clock.
Mhm. That's exactly it's a time clock. They have their set time that they come in, the set time that to give a bath. A lot of that is all on you fully, and they give you instructions while you're there. A lot of caregiving is that part of being an advocate for the patient and fighting for patient rights. A
Right.
lot of it. Making decisions about what's too much, like what's enough, making decisions on pain management. Oh my God. I think that was one of and it brings tears to my eyes and also to his brother's eyes because the pain management part was the hardest part of it. Having to fight for pain management for someone with stage 4, like, that should not even be a question. So that was tough, like, making sure that he had the meds that he needed, making sure that it was balanced because he didn't like to be completely out of it,
Right.
also didn't like to be in pain, so finding that balance. And then when the cancer treatments do start working, because it's just a roller coaster, they work, they don't work, they work, they don't work, it goes up and down. When it is working and the pain is not as bad, there's withdrawal. On top of that, the patient has to deal with, where they're cutting back their pain meds a little bit, so they could be present with their family. So you're dealing with so many different things, like the number of things that you're balancing as a caregiver, which is why I think a lot of times we don't have the time to even sit and grieve until after they pass away,
Right.
because it's just so much that you're juggling at one time.
So you're with him and you're by yourself and you're handling all this. And I know it seems odd, but I think it's a beautiful love story.
It was a beautiful love story. It is a beautiful love story. 16 years of marriage, and he was the love of my life. It was a beautiful love story. It really was. He was an amazing man. My family would tell you, our kids would he was just an amazing man, one of a kind. So when I tell people that, like, we were together all the time, he was my best friend. He was unproblematic. He was not toxic masculinity. He just was such a great person in general. And I think that's where we struggled a lot, me, his kids, his brother, is watching someone like that suffer like that, and it's always the good ones, it feels like, right?
Right.
And, like, advocating and fighting for him and stuff, and even now, we just say he was just such an amazing person, and to watch him suffer that way, it still doesn't sit right sometimes.
Well, I'm sure there's a point where why, like what a lot of things are questioned at that point too, I would imagine.
Mhm.
'Cause I mean, yeah, and to watch them go through that. And what was the conversation? How did you handle it with the kids? 'Cause I think a lot of people don't know what they would say.
That was a complicated one.
Okay.
Anderson's kids he had 2 kids out of before we married,
Okay.
and I had them full-time from 5 and 8, so those were my kids.
Right.
So he was their only parent. Their mother was not active in their lives. She had mental issues.
Okay.
So they had came from a traumatic background from that situation, and this was their dad, and he was an active father. I'm talking on the sides of every game. I am talking like hugs after school, making food. He changed diapers. He loved being a father. Like that was probably his best role. We all laugh about it all the time because he
Right.
was like professional dad. So that was really, really tough. Every kid took it a little bit differently. You know, his daughter struggled a lot, with losing her father, you know? The kids are older, like, they're 22, 23, they're older now, they're still in Phoenix, they never left Phoenix. It just
Okay.
home to them. His son, Junior, named after him, he still struggles to this day. It's like his father just died, uh, a few months ago, like, it's really tough, yeah. And then, my biological son also, he spitting image, looks almost exactly like him, and he literally it's a little bit tougher as well. So, this was a complicated situation where you have someone who was the person for everyone. Does that make sense? So, it's like, even his brother was his best friend. So, he was like when you meet him, like, he's your person. So, he had a lot of people where he was their person. So it was a tough one.
With that in mind, with that loss, I'm of the belief that there's always one good thing or one area of growth for you. As of this loss, is there some part of you that grew or did something different? Or let's talk about that. And then, so what is it? What changed, and what choices did you make that are based on what happened?
So I think the first thing that I did after Anderson passed away, my mom and my friends came into town and I made a decision to move closer back to family again. That was the first
Okay.
so that I could grieve. So I ended up packing up everything and me and my son, we moved back to Louisiana to grieve. And the grieving process, I would say it took 3 years to get through that fully. That took a lot of internal work, a lot of figuring out like who I am now. I was married in my right? And 16 years of marriage before you're 40, that's a long time. And trying to find who I am again and figure out like what this next stage in life is. Also watching the rareness of losing someone at stage 4 cancer at that age and realizing how short life really is. It made me really think to myself, what is it that you really want out of life? So as I was grieving and going through that process, I changed my health. I ended up losing like over 65 pounds. I ended up finding nature, moving my body more than I'd ever have done before. I ended up realizing what I wanted as a person was I wanted to live in a major city and not have to have a car. I wanted to, travel more. I wanted to live life to the fullest, the way that he would have wanted, the plans that we had together. And I wanted to continue doing that. There's two routes that you can go. And this is the thing about hospice and doctors. One of the most horrible things that anyone ever told me when I was a widow and sitting down with hospice afterwards was they told me, be really careful because most widows die within 3 to 5 years of their husbands dying.
Gosh,
Yes.
wow.
And I remember like just the horror of that, mostly from the grief and the stress and the stats. And it's called like the widow effect. Right. So a lot of widows do pass away either from health issues, from overly stressed, from over cortisol, from just mental issues, like all of that, because you're losing your person or whatever. So that's what they told me in hospice when they gave me the brochure and like talked about those sorts of things. And I thought to myself in that moment, like Anderson would not want that. He would want, me to live. He'd want us to thrive. And so my goal was literally to just live the life that we had planned, which was to travel more. Our kids were, getting older. I told you the kids are older. They're still in Phoenix. They're living their own lives. They're adults now. They
Right,
meet when they do, but we were at that stage in our lives because we had our kids younger, right?
right.
Where about to enter this age where our youngest was going to be 15, and we were going to be traveling more and we had plans and all those sorts of things. And when I moved back home and grieved, once I got out of grieving, I knew immediately Anderson wouldn't want me to be home. He would want me to be moving, find the city I wanted to live in. We should be traveling. We should be kind of doing those things. So to answer your question about the growth that happened there, I had to find out who I was and then also decide what part of that was me and what part of us also did I want to carry forward into the future.
Part of you did you find out? Who are you?
I figured out that I am not a suburban I'm not going to get married again. I learned
Okay.
that really quickly.
Okay.
I realized that the suburbs is not for me. My whole life in the suburbs, right?
Okay.
And it's not for me. I'm definitely a person that likes to go. I realize that I'm ambitious and that um I I want a business, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want success, I want to reach goals, I want to have purpose, I want to reach people, I want to do things like this. Like I realized that that I wanted more out of life, a bigger life than I thought I did when I was married with kids and settled. I was happy then too. But now it's like a whole new way to think about living.
So you figure out a whole new way of living. You had a new way of living. It's okay, because I think there's also some judgment or labels where once you lose your love, you need to not live life and be happy and do things you didn't do, and you doing things without them. Is that valid? Did you
Yes.
experience that?
Yeah, it is not as much when you're younger, I think. I think because I'll be 43 this year and when Anderson passed away, I think I was like 38. years old. So when you're younger, it was actually the opposite, I believe. I remember people saying, "Oh, you'll get married again soon," or "You're still young, you're still this," and I didn't want that. So that I think it, for me, it was a little bit different because he was so young and I was so young, and people would say little comments like that months after he died, by the way, months. And they would say, "Oh, yeah, you'll get married again, and there's a guy out there that'll take care of you." And I'm just like, the assumption of that as well, being younger and losing your husband is a little bit different being treated versus when you're older and you lose your husband when they expect you to lay in bed and never get up again versus, don't lose yourself or make sure that you keep your beauty up or you'll find another man soon in the future or you have your life in front of you. It's just the weirdest thing that society does. It's a little bit of ageism and it's also a little bit of, thinking that that's what I would want and assuming that I would want that, you know?
I wanna say I'm surprised at that, but most people are saying what they would want or in the assumption that you want. I mean, no matter what happened, you got to experience the love of your life. Many people don't ever get that. It
Exactly.
wasn't as long as you'd like, but I think that that's something to cherish. When you talked about business, I don't wanna lose this part of it, that the determination and wanting to do well. Let's talk about your business and what the hustle and what you bring to that.
Yeah, throughout this entire time, I was running a startup as a founder. So, this entire story that I've been telling you, my business is 5 years old now, and Anderson passed it was 1 year into my business when Anderson, I believe, got his diagnosis. So, I had a business partner, we had just launched this brand new business right around January 2020. We were 1 year in, my business partner was with me, the business was doing well, it was kicking off, we were getting clients, and we had both went full time into the business, made the decision, let the other businesses go that we had, went full time into this business, and Anderson got diagnosed. 1 year into being a founder and a startup. So imagine that whole situation there, a viable startup that was booming at that time. And I remember doing sales calls while he was getting cancer treatments, trying to sneak out the door and on the calls with people, whispering in the corner, hoping the machine doesn't beep. Basically, because I was a salesperson, I was the money maker. So my role in the business is to bring business in. I am the salesperson. I do all the sales and marketing. I am the financial gate. So it's two founders. One of them is over operations and execution, and one is sales and business growth. And I was a sales and business growth person. That was my skills set. And I had to balance launching and growing a startup while my husband was dying. And then I needed the time to grieve afterwards. And thank God I had a business partner. So
Right.
she stepped in when it was necessary and took over places where it could. I did sales calls up until probably the end, but she took over some of those as well. I remember coming back into my business and I didn't even know half the customers or clients. I didn't know who they were. I had never seen them or met them before, which is new for me because I was
Right.
the first person that you talk to before you come into the business. So all of that was happening all at one time, and Anderson the whole time encouraging me, "Don't quit, keep going."
What when you're watching the light on the monitor for the cancer and then doing this, what is it that you told yourself? Because I want people to hear that if you think you can't do something, I mean, because that is beyond anything I've ever imagined. But what were you telling yourself just to get through that?
That is such a good question. It's so funny because me and my mom were talking about that. If I was to tell you, if someone told me this, my mouth would drop as well. Like I would never thought that that would be me. But when you're in it, you just do what you got to do. I don't know where it came from. I can't tell you some secret or some where this resilience comes from. But when you are in situations like that and your husband cannot work anymore because he's in cancer treatments, there's nothing that he can do. Now you're the sole breadwinner for a family of 5 in the middle of launching your business, and you have 3 kids at home,
Right.
and cancer treatments are expensive, $10,000 a treatment, literally, and you're balancing all of that at one time. You just figure it out. Like, you don't there's no space not to, like, you don't have an option.
I mean, that was a choice to dive in. And I don't think that just happened in that moment. I think they I mean, from the minute the diagnosis happened, you stepped up and you
Yeah.
handled the business. I think that's in you to keep moving forward. And I don't think there was some magic words, but what would you tell that person now when you look at her?
I'd be proud of her, I think. Yeah. And I'd tell her I'm proud of you for doing that, for sure. Because that was a lot. That was a lot to do. Yeah.
Yeah, because that was a lot.
It does, because 'cause you're almost disassociated from it. I can't explain it. It's almost like I don't even know who that was. Eh, it's like I was there and I did it, but when you're in trauma like that and you're in a grief state like that, it's so hard to even go back to that. It feels like a whole totally different person that was dealing with that. But I'm proud of her, and she pushed through and she did the impossible, literally, because I know that that was really, really hard. None of the grief hit me until after Anderson passed away. And the funny part is that that person grieving, I'm not even sure if she would have been able to do what that person did while she was in there. It's almost like the grief separates almost, and you just are in survival mode. I don't
Right,
know how to explain it. And then when the grief hits you and you look back, you almost think, how did I do that? I wish I just literally don't know. I really don't. It was just, I was in it and there was just no air to breathe because there was so many people that needed me at that point.
well, and with grief, you know that that's gonna happen no matter what, so it makes sense that that can go on the shelf. Right now, I need to do this, but again, I just wanna celebrate you.
Thank you.
And then you have this business. What why don't you share the name?
Yeah, so my business is Lovely Impact. We're a branding, web design, and marketing agency for coaches and consultants.
Well, and I'm constantly amazed at what you and Cass, your partner, are creating, especially for a group that people don't really, take it seriously.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a certified coach and my business partner is a certified coach. And you're right, people tend to look at coaching in a certain way, especially since post 2020. It is saturated and flooded, but we think that coaches will change the world. We really do, and it's needed in the world that we live in right now. Our goal is literally to help as many coaches as possible reach their people because we believe that every coach has an ability to have a group of people that really need them and that they can change their lives. And so when we tried to go out and start coaching, there just was nothing there to help and support people. There was no, you know, person being honest about what it takes to run a coaching business full time, what it takes to have a heart-centered passion and be able to make money from it so you can do it full time, to
Right,
put your brand out there, your website out there, to get out there and to help people. Because that's the goal of what we do and all of our clients. Like, they just wanna help people. They just want
right,
to reach their people and make this world a better place one person at a time. And coaching is a beautiful industry. It just got kind of a bad rep because some people were in it for the money and not for most of our
right.
clients in it because of their hearts. And so, yeah, that's what we do. We help coaches reach their people through branding, through web design, help them look professional, help them showcase who they are, and help them reach their people so that they can find the people that they want to help and support.
And would you have done this business as powerful and as headstrong if without that loss?
I don't think so. I've been a full-time entrepreneur for 14 years.
Okay.
So I've been a full-time entrepreneur for a long time, but the last 5 years was when I got a business partner and we launched Lovely Impact. And where I'm at right now, even the way I move, the decisions I make, I would not be this person without that loss. Because once you've been through something like that, you make decisions differently. You literally make decisions differently. You think about the future differently and you get aligned with your purpose quickly. And if it's not aligned with your purpose, you can let it go easier. And so I've noticed just growth as a person, less people pleasing, less getting off track, more unapologetic about who I am and my skills. All that wouldn't have happened without that loss and going through what I went through for sure.
What is one thing that you'd want people to know about your husband?
A good man. And that's what I can say. A lot of times when people pass away, like, the truth comes out, and I
Right.
can tell you that there was no truth that came out. I found out that he had relationships with my sisters that I didn't know about. Like, he would message them and celebrate them and, like, "Oh, you got another degree, you go, girl." Like, he literally had these relationships because he was an introvert, So he didn't speak much, but
Okay.
in his circle, he was always like just such an amazing and great person. So if I think I would say that is like he was a good person. I felt like the world should have stopped when he died. And it didn't, but you just feel like he was such a good soul.
Well, thank you, T.
Thank you.
That was beautiful. If you're listening and you're a caregiver, or you're simply going through a really hard time in your life, I hope this conversation gave you something real to hold on to. T shared what it meant to love her husband through the hardest chapter of their lives and the strength it took to keep showing up. So if you're sitting there thinking, I don't know if I'm strong enough for this, remember what T said. When you're in it, you find a way. T, thank you for honoring Anderson and for sharing your beautiful love story. If this conversation moved you, consider sharing it with someone who might need a little hope today. Until next time, let's fly.